I was pondering, was slavery a good thing for blacks and their slave ancestors? In early January of 2021, Hamilton Police Chief Gene Almond and Officer John Brooks were having a conversation in front of the police department. It appears they were unaware that the officer's body camera was recording. Among the comments that were made, a few stood out to me, and I began to ponder. When talking about a slave's treatment under white rule, these are some of the points the chief made. It seems to me like they furnished them a house to live in. They furnished them clothes to put on their back. They furnished them food to put on the table, and all they had to do was friggin' work. And now we give them all those things, and they don't even have to friggin' work. You say that a black person's life was better under slavery, yet you kidnapped them from their homelands by force. You forced them to learn your language and prohibited them from speaking their own. You forced them to give up their true faith and their righteous and true God to worship yours. Not in the ways detailed by your religious texts, but twisted in the way that you saw fit as it benefited your reign over them. You used your religion to hold slaves in servitude and prevent them from rebelling against your lies, making them believe that rebellion against you was rebellion against their new God and therefore a sin. You forced them to give up their culture and forced them to live not by your culture, as you believed they were not your equal or even human, but a culture that you created for them. You say you furnished them clothes to put on their back? The slaves planted the seeds, grew the cotton, harvested the cotton, turned the cotton into cloth. They cut the cloth and sewed those fabrics into clothes. They furnished their own clothes. You say you furnished them a house to live in. They built the shacks and hovels with leftover materials used to build your houses. They also built your large plantation mansions meant for you to live in. They cleaned and maintained your houses and their own. They didn't own their domiciles, even though they built them with their own hands. They were allowed to live in what you forced them to build. They furnished their own houses to live in. You say you put food on the table. They planted, grew, harvested, cleaned, and cooked the vegetables. They raised, fed, cared for, and slaughtered the animals that provided meat. And yet they did not enjoy the spoils of their labor. They were left with tripe, limited meat bones, and fatty pieces that you would not lower yourselves to eat. They furnished their own food for their tables. You bred them like cattle and sold their children like cattle. You forced them to breastfeed your children, giving them sustenance, while reducing the slave woman to a cow and their children to calves to be sold at auction. They didn't do work for which they'd applied for. They were forced to work for you under threat of being either beaten with a whip, among other tools, or murdered by your hands. They were not allowed a choice. One of the main reasons why slavery was abolished was because slave revolts were increasing, not only in frequency, but in brutality. You would have to find a new way to hold the slaves that was more subtle and allowed them to believe they were free for your own safety. The cages built for someone else alas, may become your own. On January 6th, the world watched in horror as a mob of mostly white terrorists attacked the Capitol for the purpose of destroying democracy. Why? They believed that their freedoms were being taken away. Their culture was being diminished. Their religious freedoms were being limited. They believed that they were losing the right to raise their children as they see fit. With this, they continued to tell blacks to get over slavery, or worse, to view it as a good thing. You're angry about something you believe may be happening, but actually isn't. Some people have made the claim that the January 6 terrorists were merely patriots, while asserting that the Black Lives Matter protesters should be classified as terrorists. When people of color protest, they've mostly done so peacefully. There are some people who have turned to looting and property damage. Black Lives Matter protesters don't pepper spray the police, break into historical buildings, show up with guns, knives, or Molotov cocktail bombs. Black Lives Matter protesters don't show up with the intention of intimidating others by dressing as paramilitary with bulletproof vests or insignia of organizations that openly promote the justified murder of others. Black Lives Matter protesters don't build lynching posts and scream excitedly at the prospect that certain people should be murdered. Conservative white Americans have begun losing their minds at a hint of being told no or you can't do that. Shouldn't they just get over it or realize it was a good thing for them? Ironic, isn't it? If you enjoyed my thoughts, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos. I would like to give special thanks to Olodumare and the Orishas for their inspiration and blessings.